Hello, friends. It's Kerry Farr, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on profiting from public domain content. And public domain content basically are works that are either ineligible for copyright protection or their copyright has expired. Now, we'll see a little later that anything published, written, produced before 1923 is in the public domain. And whenever you have something that's in the public domain, you do not need permission whatsoever to copy or use this content. Now, let's say, for example, you and I were to write something today, that would be the copyright on whatever you or I produced would be good for 70 years beyond our date of death. So we'll look at some more of those things a little later. So whatever you produce would not be in the public domain for at least 70 years after your demise. So hopefully that's a long, long time from now. Now, public domain works can serve as the foundation for new creative products and can be quoted extensively. You can take, parts of a public domain book or video. I shouldn't say video, I should say film. Video, the term video came along much later, but you can use parts or all of it without paying royalties and, certainly as you have need to. Public domain works can be copied and distributed, um, digitized. You can put it on your web page. You can do anything you want with public domain content without permission or paying royalties. Now, when I took 2 or 3 chapters out of Marion Schooland's book of Bible stories and wrote a book called Bible Story, Bible Stories for Children or Bible Stories for Kids, Why Jesus Came to Earth, I used her original writing because she wrote much better than I'll ever write in my entire lifetime. I added new illustrations, and I also put a call to action in there. I put the gospel story inside the book and actually put a prayer of salvation in there. So I changed that work so that became a derivative and it became my own work. However, in the acknowledgement section of the book, I noted that this book was the original work by Marion Schooland, and I gave her credit for it. That will not affect my earnings whatsoever. Now, you do not have to do that, but I did it because I felt like it was the right thing to do. Now, what type of works make up the public domain? Well, ideas and facts are already in the public domain. And then works, books, old films, artwork, photos with expired copyrights are part of the public domain. And then nearly everything written by the government publishing office is part of the public domain. And we'll look more at the government publishing office a little later because there is a massive amount of content there that you can use absolutely free. And the content is of the best quality that you could find. The government has tremendous resources so they can hire the best writers, the best people to produce the best product. And the reason that it is in the public domain is because your tax dollars and my tax dollars paid for the government to develop that material. The government printing office prints more books, PDFs, than almost anybody else in the entire world. So there is a lot of stuff that you can find at the government printing office, and we'll look at that a little later. Of course, scientific principles, theorems, and mathematical formula, and laws of nature, all of those things are in the public domain, as well as laws and regulations, judicial opinions, government documents, and legislative reports. All of that is free for you to use. You can quote it, you can reproduce it, You can, republish it in its entirety, whatever you want to do, and you don't have to pay any royalties. It's yours to use. And then, of course, words, names, number symbols, signs, rules of grammar, diction, and punctuation are all part of the public domain. No one can tell you or I that I can't use a question mark. That's part of the public domain. And so that kind of gives you an idea of what makes up a public domain. Now, here is a simple rule of thumb to determine copyright status. Excuse me. Now, if it was published in the United States prior to 1923, it's in the public domain. And I want to skip down here. If to notation A down here, if the work, let's say if the work, the book, the film, whatever, was published in the United States between 1923 and 1978 without a notice, it is in the public domain. If the work published during this period has a notice of, a copyright notice, it is protected for 95 years from the date of publication. All right, if the work was published in the U.S. between 1923 and 1963 with a notice, but copyright was not renewed, it is in the public domain. And we'll look at that a little later. I'll show you how to determine that. Okay? And after March of 1989, all works, published and unpublished, are protected for 70 years from the date the author dies. And that's what I was referring to a little earlier. So if you write something, it's protected by copyright for 70 years after your date of death. Now, works of corporate authorship, corporations that hire people to write things, the copyright term is the shorter of 95 years from publication or 120 years from creation, and you're not going to have to worry much about that. Now, notice here on this slide, we're talking about publishing public domain content. And this came directly from Amazon.com. And this is their direct, I'm going to get a laser pointer here. This is their direct information on or their rules governing publishing public domain content. Notice that it says selling content that is in the public domain is permissible through our program. Now, this is Amazon, and so most of the stuff that you would publish would be at Amazon Kindle. Now, it says it is permissible to publish public domain content. It says we may, talking about Amazon, request that you provide proof that your submitted material is actually in the public domain and may refuse public domain content already available through our program or available through other retail sites. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, Alice in Wonderland is, a children's book, and it's a classic. It happens to be in the public domain. More than likely, that book is already available freely on Amazon.com or someplace like Gutenberg.org. And so what Amazon is saying is if that material is already available through them, you will not be able to publish it again on their website. Now, what I want to show you how to do is how to take a public domain work and turn it into a derivative. Excuse me, I'm battling a little cold here. And we'll look at some things here that would make your book a derivative. A derivative will be your very own book. Whenever you take and modify a public domain work, it becomes a derivative and you own it. Now, let's look at this. In order to provide a better customer buying experience, our policy, talking about Amazon, is to not publish differentiated versions of public domain titles. All right, so let's take the example of Alice in Wonderland. If you just go out online or you go to a bookstore and you find Alice in Wonderland and you scan that book into your computer and you try to upload it, Amazon is not going to publish it because it's the same as everything else. So what you want to do is you want to modify that. You want to enhance that. Maybe you would rewrite some of the archaic language. Maybe you would change some of the terms. Maybe you would put new illustrations in that book. And when you did that, you could retitle that book. It could be The New Adventures of Alice in Wonderland. And that book would be different than the public domain book, and that would be perfectly acceptable. Okay? So now, Amazon says we consider books, for simplicity's sake, to be differentiated when one of the following criteria are met. Number one, translated. So if you translate that from English to Spanish, that would be a differentiated version of that book. And if they didn't have that published currently, you could publish it that way. All right, the second way is annotated. All right, so it contains annotations. All right, annotations are unique, handcrafted additional content, including study guides, literary critiques, detailed biographies, or detailed historical content. So if you go in and you add annotations to the book, or a study guide, or questions at the back of each chapter, that would be considered, adding value to that book, and it would be different than the original, and that would be acceptable. But when you do, add annotations or translations or illustrations, there's no point in publishing that book as a public domain work because you can make much more money if you publish it as your own work. Remember, if you publish a public domain work in Amazon, it's perfectly acceptable, but Amazon has on the Kindle two royalty options. You can receive a 35% royalty or commission for each book sold, or you can receive a 70% commission for each book sold. All right. Any book not priced between $2.99 and $9.99 on Amazon Kindle automatically gets a 35% commission or royalty payment. If you price your book between $2.99 and $9.99, your ebook, you can make your print book higher or whatever you want to do. Then Amazon will pay you 70% royalty on each book you sell. So what you want to do is you want to publish it as your own work because Amazon only pays 35% total for anything that's a public domain work that you publish. All right. And so then the third way to differentiate your book is to include 10 or more unique illustrations related to the book. All right, so then it says books that meet this criteria must include translated, annotated, or illustrated in the title field. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that because if I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make this a derivative. It's going to be my own book. And when Amazon says, is this a public domain book? I'm going to simply say no, because it's not. I've changed it and made it a derivative. Okay? All right, so you can go back and look at these things. Just go into Amazon kdp.amazon.com, and you can find this very page and look at it for more information. Now, how to determine copyright status? Now, as we have already indicated, anything published before 19, or as my granddaddy used to say, 19 and 23, is in the public domain. All right, so where you can go to the Copyright Renewal Database at Stanford University for works published between 1923 and 1963. So let's just go over there right now, and let's see. I've got that up. Got that up here somewhere. Had that up here somewhere. All right, there we go. All right, so what you do is you go over to Stanford EDU copyright renewals, and you would just do a simple search here. And let's look at Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. We know that this was written in the 1930s, and so we're going to search for this. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. All right, so we see that this was written by Margaret Mitchell, and here's a registration number. And if we go out here and look at the long record, we'll see that this was written by Margaret Mitchell in that she registered for copyright on June 30th in 1936. Now notice, had she not renewed the copyright on this book would be in the public domain. But notice right here where it says renewal date. On July 1st, 1963, this book was renewed. So it's not in the public domain. Well, let's go back for just a moment and try another. Let's try Tom Sawyer. And we know that Tom Sawyer was written by Mark Twain, but let's search for Tom Sawyer. All right, so and Mark Twain was actually a pen name of Samuel Clemens. Mark Twain wasn't his real name. So those of you that are interested in, using a pen name, you can actually do that. And I have a PDF document that we're posting inside of Self-Publish Academy that will give you 7 or 8 steps on exactly how to write under using a pen name or a pseudonym. All right, so let's look at the record on this. All right, so the title is Tom Sawyer. The registration date was October 26, 1949, and the renewal date, it was renewed October 29, 1976. Now I've looked elsewhere, and now this says that it's been renewed, but I think I've seen somewhere that that's actually in the public domain, and we'll look a little more closely at that a little later. Well, I tell you what, let's go to Gutenberg and see what Gutenberg says about that. Gutenberg.org is a foundation that has free ebooks. You can download thousands of ebooks here at Gutenberg, and if they're in the public domain, you can republish them. But let's look up Tom Sawyer and see what Gutenberg says about Tom Sawyer. All right, so here we see the Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and you'll also notice that 291 people have downloaded this book. So if I click on this, notice on the left I can click download and download that book and get it absolutely for free. Or I can go over here to the BibRec and it will give me the information about this book. It tells me that Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens lived from 1835 to 1910. Tells me what language it was written in. Tells me what the subject is about, and it's humorous and it's fiction, and so even though it has been renewed, the release date of August 1, 2008 was the date that it became in the public domain. So this book, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, is in the public domain, and you can use it as you want. You can take short stories out of it and repackage them or publish them, do whatever you want with it. So that's just to give you an example there. Now, once I once I find a book title, I can also go to copyright government uh, / records to determine if that book is in the public domain. And let me get this back on the slideshow here. So there you go, copyright.gov records, and we'll make these slides available for you so that you can find all this information. Now, when you find a book that's in the public domain, what you need to do is you need to update or rewrite that book into what is called a derivative. And I've mentioned derivative at least a half a dozen times in this presentation. A derivative is a work that was derived from an original work, but it's been enhanced, it's been updated, it's had value added to it, and so it's no longer the original work, but it is a new work that is your publication. Now, the only thing that you can copyright is the information that you add. Let's say, for example, we took Tom Sawyer and we added new illustrations and changed the language a little bit. That could be my, the New Adventures of Tom Sawyer could be my derivative of Mark Twain's original. However, if somebody else wanted to take, Tom Sawyer's original work and change it and add their personality to it, they could certainly do that. I can't copyright that original content because it's in the public domain. I can only copyright the changes that I've made to it. Okay? So when you take a public domain work, what you're going to do is you're going to rewrite or update archaic language, change, maybe the historical facts are changed or there's outdated information. You're just going to update those things and correct them. You're going to rewrite the text, the book's text in your own voice, so that it sounds like you writing it instead of Mark Twain 120 years ago. Now, another thing that you can do is you can compile chapters of several different books from the same category into one new book, and it can be a thematic book where maybe you find 10 old magazines that are talking about photography, and you take one article from each magazine and you compile a new book all within the same theme but with different articles by different authors, and you compile those and you make that a book. That is a new book that is your work, and it is certainly a derivative, and it's a cool way to do a book. There are a lot of old magazines. I mean, I think something like I forget 200,000 magazines were published before 1963, and only out of that group, I'm talking about 200,000 different publications, not just magazine issues. But out of that group, only 2,000 or so renewed their copyright. So there are literally hundreds of thousands of magazines available with free content that you can use. And, the rules of photography are still the same as they were in the early 1900s. The equipment has maybe changed, but if you're setting up lighting, you're going to do it the same way. Uh, it's pretty much the same thing with math or English. All of those things, anything that you would find that was written 50 or 60 years ago, the information really hasn't changed. It's just you need to repackage it in a form that you can put your name on it and sell it. So another thing, you can add new photos or illustrations. You could add, I'm talking about how to take a book and make it a derivative. Ask questions at the end of each chapter. Add a workbook or study guide. You can even, let's say you wanted to take The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. You can take that original work by Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, and you can read it, turn it into an audio book, and that audio book then becomes your product. You can sell it yourself. You can take the content from these books and use them in e-zine articles. E-zines are articles that are basically electronic and are online. You can use it for your website, for your blog post, whatever. You can take this information. See, I know most of you want to write your own book, your own story, and that's great. And once you get your own books written and you're looking for content and you're looking for a way to add another income stream, you can begin the process of publishing, uh, you know, or using content that you find in the public domain to help you publish much quicker. I know of a man that's actually in the last couple of years produced about 2,300 public domain books, and is generating a couple $1,000 a month just from uploading books and letting people buy them. Not he's written some of his own, but he's also produced many more. It's a great income producing strategy. All right, so let's talk about the government printing office. Excuse me one more second, I got a cough. All right, almost all content published by the federal government is in the public domain simply because our tax dollars paid to produce that content. So what you want to do is you want to go out and find, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of works that are just masterfully done. And so you want to go out and identify content that is related to your likes, your area of expertise, and then use that as a product. And so United States citizens can use government published content any way they wish without permission, without paying royalties, without cost. And so the first place we want to go is we want to go to bookstore.gpo.government. All right, GPO is the government printing office. And what we're going to do is when we go to bookstore.gpo.gov is we're going to find a book title. And what you will find is that the government prints hundreds of thousands of books and they sell those books, but there's no need for you to buy those books because many of them, if you'll just take the title after you go to bookstore.gpo.gov and copy and paste that title, then go to usa.gov and paste that title in and add PDF at the end, many times the PDF will come up and you'll be able to download that book and edit it and use it however you like. So what I want to do is I want to go over here, and we were in Gutenberg. By the way, you can go to gutenberg.org and find almost any book or information on any book. There are hundreds or thousands of books to download there, and they'll tell you whether or not it's in the public domain. So let's go over here to the government printing office, bookstore. All right, so bookstore.gpo, government printing office. Now notice at the top here there are new releases, and it'll show you. Now here's a book, Code of Federal Regulations, $64. And these are not things that Minerals Yearbook, $61. These are not books that you would be interested in republishing, but here are public papers of the presidents of the United States, and the price of this book's $142. Now, in order for the government to produce these books, they had to save the original document as a PDF. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a title that we like, and then we're going to go see if we can find a PDF. So you can go to new releases, you can go to bestsellers, and this will tell you some of the books that the government that are the bestsellers with the government. I don't see anything that interesting there other than the Declaration of Independence of the United States, and so just different books there. So you're thinking that all of this stuff is, legal books and stuff. You're thinking that that's all the government writes, but it's not. Let's say, for example, if we went up here and we just typed in the top here, health and fitness, and we did a search, and you can do beauty tips. I mean, you name the subject, and you can find it in here, and the government has written something about it. All right, so here are some of the, here's the Healthy Woman, a complete guide for all ages. And I'm not going to click on that book because I wasn't able to find, well, I'll tell you what, the PDF, but let me show you how to do that. The Healthy Woman, a complete guide for all ages. All right, so this is a book that the government has written that they're selling for $7.99. So if I take and copy, let me, if I take and copy, and we'll come back here in a minute. I'm trying to get all of that. If I take and copy that title and hit Control C if you're on a Windows unit, Command C if you're on a Mac, and then I go over to USA.gov and go up here to the search bar and I hit Control V and put that book title in there, and then when I get out to the very end, what I want to do is I want to type in PDF. I want to see if I can find the PDF of that book. All right, so here I see that there is a table of contents for that book that's the PDF. So, uh, which brings up another thought. If you didn't republish this book yourself, it's in the public domain. You could still go in here and write a book with these chapter titles. You could use these chapter titles if you wanted and write your own book. All right, so we found the table of contents for that book. All right, so now you'll notice that there are all kinds of other things that come up here. All right, so here's one, PDF heart disease. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, now here's a book that has been written by the government, okay? And look at the quality of this content. And it, for some reason, starts at page 15. But I mean, you can take every bit of this content. And do you realize what it would take for you or I to produce a book of this quality? With all of these graphics, it talks about heart disease, and coronary artery disease, and has beautiful uh, photographs that are high resolution. Uh, it has illustrations, and it's phenomenal. It's like a textbook, or a high quality book that you would get in school. And just look at the quality of this particular book. Well, you can take this book and determine, or I shouldn't say determine, you can take this book and reproduce it as your very own. Now, because most of the government content is in the public domain, if it does not say in the front of the book that this book is copywritten, this book is available for you um, to download and use any way you want. Now, here's another PDF on healthy aging. Um, and so look at the quality of this material. All you'd have to do is, change a little bit of this. Now you do have to take and put this, once you download the PDF, you do have to put it into uh, an editable, a Microsoft Word editable piece of software where you can edit this and make some changes, and then you've got your very own book. I mean, much better than most of us could ever produce. The quality is just phenomenal. Now, I wanted to look at one more that I saw there that was pretty interesting. Let me kind of go back up here. I saw one here that said, let's see, and here's one. Here's one on reproductive health. Uh, the Healthy Woman, a complete guide for all ages. But this one looked interesting. PDF: How to Talk to Women in a Bar, and this is written by Women'sHealth.gov. It's a government publication. So this is also um, available. Doesn't look like uh, what the government said it was, but just look at the amount of content that is available. I thought this was How to Talk to Women in a Bar, and this is healthy breastfeeding. So let me go back. Okay, yeah, it's actually the Healthy Woman Breastfeeding PDF. So you just see, it's just amazing, the content that is available, and so you can go to bookstore.gpo.gov and find almost anything that you want, and so that will give you a pretty good idea on how to get started on the public domain. And if you'll go to Self Publish Academy, we have I don't know, a half a dozen interviews with uh, Tony Leidig, who is a public domain expert, and that information should help you get started and use that material to write your own books. And that's pretty much it for this week, folks. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, as we talk about next week. Next week we'll talk about, once you've published your book, how to start promoting it. So I'll look forward to visiting with you again next week. Have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.